How's it going, everyone? My name is Nick Clement with Access 4 and welcome to MSPland. Today we have guest host Ben Kelly speaking with Dan Egglestone, Chief Technology Officer at the MSP T4 Group. In this episode, Dan reflects on the changes in MSPland since he joined the industry, as well as his experience in transitioning from hands-on on-site operations to a predominantly remote environment, a shift especially accelerated during the pandemic. As business boomed for T4 Group during the pandemic, Dan speaks to how this rapid expansion became a double-edged sword, leading to intense workloads and ultimately burnout. Dan then also highlights a critical aspect often overlooked in the digital age, the irreplaceable value of in-person events. He discusses their pivotal role in fostering genuine connections, continuous learning, and personal growth within the MSP community. Let's jump into the episode.
So, the wonder that is Dan Egglestone. Thank you so much for joining us on MSPland, mate. Great to see you.
Me. Good to see you too, mate.
Thanks again for your time. Probably to start with, maybe just for the viewers. So, how did you get into IT in the first place?
So how I actually got an interest in IT was back in the 90s. My mother was actually the IT administrator at the local high school.
Stop it.
And so that's how I actually got an interest in IT, and then it evolved from there. And I started in the industry in 99 doing a traineeship for what was considered an MSP back then, but the model obviously wasn't evolved as it is today.
So you were one of those lucky kids that had a computer at home.
I had a micro B, which for the kids at home, if you're playing along, you literally booted that up off a floppy disk, and it was a green and black screen. And then I think from the micro B, we went to a 386 with a math coprocessor.
Wow.
So I'm showing my
impressive.
age.
That sounds impressive. I remember being super jealous of my neighbours who had the Commodore 64 with the cassette drive. Yep. And Summer and Winter Olympics, the video games. That was next level.
We had a friend that had a Commodore
edge.
64, which was amazing because the Commodore 64 had the best games on it compared to a PC back then.
Oh, fantastic. So, mate, how have you seen, so given your length of term in the industry and your experiences so far, how have you seen the tech industry change over that time? And, what are some of the key lessons that you've learned?
Well, over the time, obviously, when I started, we only had dial-up internet. So back in 99, circa 99 to 2001, we did a lot of government work back then for local shires, and it was literally you drive to a site once a week. They had a clipboard that you would literally pick up with all the issues written on it, and you would spend the day working through the issues. And that's how it was. So to see that evolution to go from back then when it was all on site and it was all hands on to now you hardly ever go on site. With T4 Group, we've got clients that I've never actually stepped foot on.
Wow.
Like we do all the work remotely. So the evolution has changed. We're more efficient. It's just a better way of doing business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really that internet piece. It's changed. The modern workplace has changed. The tool sets, the technologies, and explosion of cloud and uplift to cloud. It's been amazing to watch and to be part of. So maybe if you could take us through, I guess, some of the biggest challenges that you've faced over that time, professionally, or in running MSP businesses over that time.
Yep. So I've been involved in 2 prior MSPs before I landed at T4 Group, which I had a stake in both of those. And the last one, probably the growth explosion that came from COVID, because no one saw that coming. That was sort of just like, bam, here's this new way of doing business. And it was really interesting, as crazy as it was at the time, to see we saw an evolution in business that if COVID never came, probably would have taken another 10 or 15 years for it to actually get to that point where we had that hybrid working environment and for it to go that way. So we compressed 10 to 15 years down into like 18 months. And the way that business changed was huge. And it was really interesting to see who adapted well to it and who didn't adapt well to it. So I've had the conversations that I have with people now aren't about tech, it's about business. So how are you retaining the key staff that you want to have? How are you enticing the key staff that you want to have? And I've had situations where I've spoken to people and you have to work in the office 5 days a week. And I sit across the table from them and I just say, that's not going to work. As much as you don't want it to go that way, it has changed and you have to offer that hybrid solution. And so they'll interview people who say, I want 3 days in the office, 2 days from home. And if you don't offer it, well, then they'll go get a job somewhere else.
It's a challenge.
It is. And then within that comes the own inherent challenge because not everybody's capable of working remote.
That's true. Yeah, challenges everywhere. I mean, and you're right, bold steps through the day and the, you know, it put a lot of pressure on business in general, right? Put a lot of pressure on business and commerce to adapt, and then put a lot of pressure on MSPs to deliver that as well. So there's a lot of bold stuff going on, and you know, the catalyst was there, and people were, you know, more open to large changes, were kind of forced into it. Like you say, they, you know, compressed that decision making, that change period, you know, to a much smaller period of time, but put a hell of a lot of pressure on, you know, on MSPs to deliver on that. I know, you know, apart from hoovering up all the laptops and you know, headsets and monitors and getting people, you know, working remotely, it's you know, there's a lot of pressure on the teams to actually deliver that over time, and so I'm interested in to get your insights into. That's great for business, right? So you're able to, you know, to grow your business off the back of that requirement, but then the challenges around, you know, how do you find the team members to do that, and how do you actually, again, in a mostly remote working environment, how do you pull that together to look after your people and actually deliver for your customers?
Yeah, and that's where it gets tricky, especially I was regional based at that stage, and I'm still regional based today, but I'm obviously working for T4 Group, which is a Melbourne based MSP. And I work remote, but I don't work from home. So I got the offer to work from home, and I was just like, no, if you can find me an office, I need somewhere to go that's work. In COVID, didn't like working from home because I didn't like the fact you couldn't have the separation from home to business. So you get up and it's just like, oh, well, I'm here. I'll go get on the computer and start my day at 6 a.m. And then it would get to 5 and you'd be like, oh, well, tea's not ready. So I'll keep working. And you kept working. So it was really interesting from that aspect. And then, yeah, trying to find reasons. When COVID kicked off, we were a 2-man MSP. So it was like, oh my God, you're running around before lockdown kicks in. That the first time that they announced the first lockdown, I was actually that day moving my dad into aged care. And at 2:00 in the afternoon, got the call. And we'd sort of started to prepare for it because it was interesting. I'd had dinner in the city with a couple of guys. And one of the guys, Brendan, actually said to me, he's like, we'll be locked down in 2 or 3 weeks. And I was sitting there going, nah.
Never happened.
Nah, won't happen. Won't happen. And I had a client ring me. It went down as the dumbest thing that I said in 2020. This guy rang me and he's like, oh, you know, if they put us in lockdown, and I was like, I don't think that's going to be a thing. You know, it's the government, it's the media. I think they're just talking it up. And my wife still reminds me it was the dumbest thing that I said in 2020 because literally 2 weeks later, it was like, bang, the whole country just shut down. And so that, I still remember that Sunday night, we were cruising around the countryside until 1:00 in the morning, getting stuff in place for people so that they could adapt to that change come Monday morning. And then trying to find resources, the right people, was really difficult. For me personally, what actually came out of COVID was ultimately burnout.
Yeah, absolutely.
After working...
And no wonder why, right?
Yeah. You know, the growth was huge. So, you know, we had a growth plan and our growth exploded. You know, money went through the roof. So you're riding this wave of really successful, but you're working 14, 16 hours a day. And I was an owner at that point. So you're responsible. Correct. You're wearing the 15 to 20 hats of doing everything.
It's a 7-day a week.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Switching off was not an option. And And so it did ultimately lead to burnout, which I'm not ashamed to say to people. I got to the
absolutely.
end and I just went,
And no small
I
wonder.
got cooked.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting to know. So I've known you for a little while now, and even through some of these prior businesses, and I've really enjoyed watching you become more reflective and more considered, I guess, and probably more open and giving in terms of your time and feedback to to your colleagues, but also the community. Even resources here. I saw you having a cup of coffee with the guys this morning and imparting some wisdom. It's really interesting to see that. So do you feel that, I guess maybe some maturity, some experience, and also having gone through some of those experiences, that you feel like it's part of what you're here to do is to be a little bit more reflective in respect of how you engage with your own employees, your own business, but also your customers? Because what I picked up on before was, you're talking about the conversations that you have aren't necessarily about the tech, right? They're about that customer's businesses and I guess the outcomes. So do you think that those experiences have kind of changed the way that you seek to have a relationship with your customers?
Oh, 100%. It's more about, and that's what having my own MSP taught me. It's you're building your business, so you get to experience what that's like. So it gives you that perspective to go, okay, the conversations that I need to have with these people aren't about, let's talk tech, let's talk comms, let's talk about your business. Where's your business going? And then that evolves into that tech conversation. How are we going to deliver that from a tech perspective to get you to where you want to go? I genuinely want my clients to be successful, because if they're successful, I'm successful.
Yep.
So it's that knock-on flow-on effect.
Yep.
And so in terms of reflection, it was funny that you say that, because it was actually 3 weeks ago, and I've been doing coaching with James Davis from PAX 8, and we were talking about imposter syndrome and whatnot, and he actually made the comment to me. He goes, "You realize you've got a lot to teach people?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You've got 25 years of experience.
Absolutely.
You've been through 2 MSPs. You're on to working for T4 Group. Your role has evolved and changed and all this sort of stuff." He's like, "You could actually teach people." And I knew stuff, but it wasn't until he actually said that I was like, maybe I can teach people. And so that's why earlier today, when I was talking to some of your team, and they're like, "Oh, I have this," and I was like, "Well, have you looked at it this way?" And it's just like, I like to give back. I didn't realize I had something to teach people until recently. So now it's trying to incorporate that into the day-to-day, help run T4 Group, but at the same time, deliver a different experience to people to show them that, yes, there's different ways to do stuff. And that's a good thing about the MSP community, is that we all help each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, it really is, and like, you end up where you're at, some of the experiences that you've had and that you've passed, right? And so, why would you not pay it forward? Why would you not replay that, into your peers?
Yep.
What's your legacy? What are you leaving behind you?
Yep.
And it's really good that you do that. And, and again, these days we need to be more open and honest and genuine about how we're feeling and how we're operating. And it's it's great that you're leading by example in respect to that. I find you really honest and open, and the feedback's always genuine and raw, and that's really, I think, really healthy. So I know you've been to the States recently.
Yes.
Yeah. I've seen some very interesting posts on LinkedIn and otherwise. So tell me a little bit about what you were there for and what you've learned.
So the latest trip to the States, we went to Galactic Universe. Galactic is one of our US partners that we're using their product for VSO. So we're going to start offering virtual chief security offering to clients here in Australia, because there's going to be a need for it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously in the States, compared to us, they're a lot further down the line when it comes to compliance and all that sort of things. They have a lot more legislation around do's and do nots that we don't have over here yet, but we're starting to see that. The latest changes that they're bringing in, historically, as I said earlier, a big company has a data breach, they cop a $2 million fine, they pay it, and they go on about their business,
Right.
and there's no real repercussions to that. And obviously, with the legislation changes, board members are now going to be responsible. And so it's the business will get fined, the board will get fined, the management levels can get fined. So the game's going to change considerably. So security is going to become a massive core component of IT services in the next few years, which is why we're getting onto it now. A lot of our clients are in the aged care space, so we're already seeing that demand and questions for it, hence we're bringing that to market. So that was probably the big thing. Like, as I say, when you get to the States and you start talking to some of the MSPs over there and what they have to go through, it's like, wow, this is like a whole nother level of, we're very casual over here.
Right.
So when that kicks into gear over here, you're going to have to elevate your business to that next level to become that trusted advisor. And it's not going to be just the Essential 8, it's going to be VSO, it's going to be, talking about security, having the security people in place to be able to have those conversations, to do tabletop exercises, to do everything that's going to come with that, to provide that data back so that if anything ever happens, you've got yourself covered.
And so do you see that as the evolution of, from an MSP's perspective, and the opportunity there is to be providing those VSO, services, as an extension of actually the provision of cybersecurity and so forth. Yeah. So that's the opportunity there going forward, is that as that compliance and obligation increases here locally.
Yep.
So I guess it's an opportunity there for I guess a land grab of those. Set yourself up as experts in that area as an extension of providing cybersecurity.
Yeah, well, absolutely, because you're always going to have, we call it IT assurance, fully managed services, call it what you will. There's always going to be that component of it, but then we're building off on that. We then have our Essential 8 offering, so to get you to level 2 of maturity of Essential 8. But then now we're seeing that VSO component will be the next component that's going to come in. And if you look at the way that the automation's going, some of the tools out in the market now, level 1 help desk, in my opinion, I would have said 5 years, but seeing what's happened in the last 12 months, I'd say within 3 years, level 1 service desk won't exist as it does today.
Wow.
So, ticket comes in, automation can do new user creation, and within 15 minutes, it's all completed. So as that AI evolves, that'll get better, which means what happens to those guys that are doing level 1 support? So there's an opportunity to then grow and develop those level 1 guys to go up to
do higher value work.
Value work.
Yeah.
And then higher value. To give you an example, one of the guys that I spoke to in the States who's doing VSO for an automotive dealership, it's $25,000 a month reoccurring.
Yeah.
Which is just, when he told me that, I just about fell off the chair, because I was like, that's an insane amount of money.
Yeah. And then you look at your customer base or addressable customer base, if these compliance and obligations are broad brush.
Yep.
Across enterprise and then to smaller businesses as well. Massive opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, right? So it's like the evolution of or you guys adapting to fill that gap and be able to provide those type of services. Are there other areas of tech that are evolving in that way, and what other opportunities do you see going forward?
It's a really interesting question, because the evolution, obviously AI automation is a big part of it. But in saying that, resources then become a problem, because everybody's, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, trying to find staff is a challenge.
Yeah.
So how do you build those components of the business? So, we don't do comms. We do comms, but we do comms with you guys. It's not something that we're going to build an in-house solution and do all that sort of stuff. And it's the same now. We're starting to see certain elements of pro services. So then you could partner with someone that can do the pro services work on the background. You white label it, sell it as yours, and that's how it's done. So it'll be interesting to see, because, as I say, the skills shortage is going to be a problem. So it's going to be about partnering with the right providers to be able to deliver the service that it looks like you're delivering, which you are, but it's done through somebody else.
Yeah, it's under your umbrella though, right? And
Yeah, correct.
So finding, finding partners who can become then an extension, effectively, of your business.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And do you see that, just in terms of the MSP space and the market in general over the next 5 to 10 years, is that where you see the evolution in terms of MSPs, remaining experts in their customers, like you said before, understanding your customers' business and and what outcomes they require, and then selecting key vendors effectively, right? And so you're effectively vendor managers as opposed to building the tech to deliver, right? Like you said, you're not going to stand up a voice stack, right? That's that you're going to choose a provider to do that, right? Same with cybersecurity and others. So is that where you see the MSP market going?
That's where I see it going in the next 5 to. It will be more of a consulting service, and as I say, with the VSO giving that direction and how to drive that and all that sort of stuff. I still think you're still going to see those little 3-4 man MSPs that'll exist.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting in the last 18 months to watch the mergers and acquisitions space.
Lots going on, right?
There's a lot going on in that space.
And investment from overseas as well, right? So it's not just larger players here locally hoovering up other players. There's some significant investment coming from offshore as well, right?
Correct.
So it looks like, if sort of because these are great businesses and they're obviously popping up on the radar, for investment and venture cap.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's I forgot what I was going to say. 100%. It's really interesting. And I was talking, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I was talking to a good friend in the MSP space the other day, and they were saying that, 70% of MSPs are more of a lifestyle business here in Australia, and there's only 30% that really play in that area of growth. I'm lucky enough to be working for one of the ones that's in the area of growth. We've got some pretty significant plans over the next 3 years of where we want to go in terms of, growing out, looking after Victoria. And so it's really exciting to be part of that. I couldn't go back to a slow moving MSP.
Right. And I can certainly relate, because, my area of focus is really finding those new partners to our program. And, we're really selective, and I come across that a lot. Right? There's some great businesses out there. I would love to have one of them. They're great businesses that they're very much lifestyle businesses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, in those situations, the conversations I still like to have with effectively the owners is, again, great, it's a lifestyle business, you're very profitable, etc. What's the legacy that you're providing for your current staff? Because they absolutely love their staff, treat them like family, etc. But again, what's the legacy they're leaving? Is it a growing business? Are we teaching people and bringing them up, or are we just simply spinning the wheels and and spending our time on our boat? It's it is interesting, but then you do find those businesses, those MSPs, like you're saying, that really have a growth mentality, and they're easy to see, right? They're very easy to see because there's some factors there that are really up front. Typically, you'll find that they've got obviously a growing customer base. They have that mentality, but they've also got people in those businesses that actually carry a growth number, right? Yep. It's a strategic. It's part of the DNA, right? They're there to grow, and they're unashamed about that. That's what they're there to do. Again, find quality partners to help you go and do that. Get your investment, grow by organically new customers, but also grow by merger and acquisition as well.
Yeah,
mate. I know you get out a fair bit on the road. I've seen you at the odd event or two out on the road. So what do you look at? So tell us what the the FY25 looks like rather, in terms of your your peering. Where do you get your information from? What events do you go to? What do you look for, and to stay current and informed?
Well, it's really interesting because obviously since COVID, pre-COVID, roadshows were regular. It'd be down in Melbourne once a quarter and there was always something on. And then COVID rolled around and we adapted to this new way of delivering everything digital, which is good. And I understand the business practicality behind that. But I do miss old school in-person events. And it's one of the things, you guys have a roadshow. Roadshow is always fantastic. A lot of the wealth of the knowledge that comes out of a roadshow is in the session afterwards, where you're standing at the bar talking
Absolutely.
to the other MSPs. And
All the business always done through the bar.
That's
Absolutely.
where you get a lot of your really good nuggets. So for me, I'm very selective these days about what I'll go to. I'm lucky enough to have been to the States twice this year for different conferences, and when we go to the States, it's more about keeping abreast of what's coming, where it's evolving. We're very lucky. Ian's a visionary in terms of, Ian doesn't operate in 2024. Ian operates in 25, 26. So he is the visionary. He's keeping an eye on where that's going. And so that's where we're always constantly evolving, looking at what's going on. And so then when it comes to events, it's just like, all right, well, what am I going to get the most value out of to show up to and all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting. DattoCon's always a must. If you guys have a roadshow in Melbourne, it's always a must. But yeah, there's not as many as there used to be, which is an interesting dynamic between Australia and the US, because if you look at the US, there's just about every week, if you lived in the US, there is something industry related that you could be going to learn from. We don't have that over here. We've gone down that digital path, but then as you know, like when it's like, oh, we're doing a webinar, it's like, oh yeah, I'll register, but then you'll get sidetracked with something else. So I think you need that element where it takes you out to put you into that specific event, so that you're actually in the moment, fully immersed, connected, because it's just too easy. And that's, as I say, it's a pro and a con.
Look, you're absolutely right. You know, and again, it's human nature, right? It's in a world where we can work from anywhere, we can do webinars from anywhere, and so forth. We're still human beings, and being face to face, one on one, there's absolutely no substitute for it.
And that's something that we implemented internally. So we've got guys, head offices in Box Hill. We've got two of us up in Echuca. We've got a guy down in Warrnambool, a guy down in Bairnsdale, guys down in Geelong. So we implemented a rule that the third week of every month, everybody comes to the office, and we spend the week working in Melbourne just to build that team unity, because you can see that disconnection. You can make that remote team work, and it works really well. But if you leave it for too long, you can see that disconnection, which is why you need to bring everybody together.
And we're similar, right? So we've gone and we've implemented a minimum of 3 days a week in the office. But as you know, we've got people all over Australia and New Zealand and so forth, and we're a large team now, right? So getting together as often is a little bit more difficult, logistically expensive, etc. So we've baked that in. But part of the reason for getting together in the office, we've got some young staff members, young team, and you cannot mentor someone over a Zoom call, right? Your professional development doesn't come along on scheduled video calls or telephone calls. It needs to happen organically. It needs to happen, in the break room. You need to be in the bullpen. You need to see when something's gone wrong. Someone's reacting, how that's reacting, overhear something, and that's really important, I think.
Yeah. And because you see it, we hit teams, and we get in and we talk about whatever we have to talk about, and it's like, okay, thanks, because we're all very busy, and you just click off, you leave, and you go back to what you were doing. So it's about fostering that growth, and that's why earlier, talking in the tea room to one of your staff, and she was asking me questions, and I just said to her, I said, got me on Teams, hit me up. If you want to run through scenarios, we'll run through scenarios. I want to be able to give back, and obviously teach those younger kids, how to navigate this. Because she was asking me those questions. She's like,
how do I be successful?
How do you do this?
How do I engage?
And it was just like, okay, well, and there was a prime example. She, we'll go off topic for a sec. We were out there, and I said, I would do this. And her superior was standing next to her, and she said to him, she goes, are you okay if I do that? And I said, I'm going to stop you right there. I said, you don't ask him that question again. She goes, what do you mean? And I said, you take the problem to him, and you have 3 solutions.
Correct.
How you're going to fix that problem. And you say, here's the problem I've got. Here's 3 solutions, and this is the best one that I think we should go with. And I said, 9 times out of 10, he's going to go, yep, let's do that. I said, on the odd occasion, he'll go, nah, let's have a chat about it, and you'll work through it. But don't come to him with a problem asking for an answer. Come to him with a problem and a solution,
And again, if you're isolated, then where do you develop that confidence, or how do you feel empowered to actually go and make a decision on your own, particularly when you're new in an industry and you're starting out? It's absolutely that, right? So again, you're going to get that by being in a collaborative environment. I think that's really important. So, mate, shameless plug, T4 Group. Tell me a little bit about what's your focus for your business for FY25. We're on the cusp, so are you energized? What's the goals for FY25 for T4?
Well, we run EOS, so we just actually had our annual 2-day offsite 2 weeks ago. The plan is regional growth within Victoria, so to strengthen our footprint in Victoria. So we've got the Box Hill office, as I say, and we've got Echuca, Bairnsdale, and we're looking to expand our regional locations to just be able to deliver MSPs basically across Victoria. So awesome. Grow that out, grow the team.
And when you're selecting a prospective customer, what are the things that you're looking for in a potential customer? I know you don't just take any customer that comes along. You're obviously selective. So what's your process then for selecting a customer?
They need to be aligned. That's probably the big thing. You need to have that conversation to say, this is our tech stack. This is why we have this tech stack. This is, we don't want to support 15 different, if you're coming from somebody else, well, we need to push our tech stack into your business because we know how to support it. We know why. We're lucky in the aspect, we get a lot of referrals now from existing clients. So that's how we acquire a lot of our clients. And so we get really good warm leads, and we do every size of business, but obviously a lot of the stuff that we're starting to deal with now is 50, 100 seats.
Yeah, wow.
We're doing a lot in the aged care space. It's one of our main verticals that we go after. So obviously when you're in the aged care space, we're talking 600 seats, that sort of thing.
Yep. That's fantastic. That's really interesting. You mentioned something I'll pick up on there before, EOS. So I know a lot of MSP businesses, are big fans of EOS. A lot of people in my peer group, and I know, and you as a business owner and leader and operator, have used those type of services for years. Maybe a few insights on the value you see there.
Yeah, so we run 2 core frameworks within T4 Group. So we do EOS, which is our strategic planning side of things. And then we also follow True Methods, which is how we run the MSP. So a lot of the numbers that we run through EOS come from True Methods because those numbers are best in breed from True Methods. So through True Methods, that's how we have like the breakdowns of the team. So we have a professional services team. Their whole focus is just knocking over projects. We've got our technology success managers. They do the day-to-day, looking after the clients, talking to them, strategic roadmaps, building that out to then feed that work into the project. We've got service desk who just do tickets day in, day out. And we have our CS and TAM team who sit in the background. CS does all the cybersecurity and all automation and all that sort of stuff. And the TAM guys go out and audit sites to go, okay, this is where the tech's aligned, this is where it's misaligned. And so that sort of feeds back into that EOS. I love EOS. I'm got to admit, I'm a fanboy. The whole 90 days, you're always constantly driving the business forward. So you rocks, you've got stuff that you've got to do. You've got to do it. It holds everyone accountable, which is great. One of the things that they say in EOS is get comfortable in the uncomfortable. And initially when I started, it was such a daunting prospect. It's just like, oh my God, you've actually got to say what you think. And so to sit in a room
and actually show what you did.
Yeah.
Did you actually deliver on those things that we said you were going to do last quarter?
100%. Even week to week, because you get to-dos to do week to week. So you've got to make sure you've got your to-do done before the next meeting. So that accountability that comes with that, but to see how that drives the business forward constantly. As I said to you earlier, it's like a shark. If a shark's not swimming, it's dead. If your business isn't evolving, if you're not taking those steps to go to that next level, you're ultimately going to die. And that's where EOS, for us, is a really good framework. I quite enjoy it. As I say, it adds a challenge to work because it's like, all right, we're setting these goals.
Right.
They're not unachievable. You've got 90 days. You know what you've got to get done.
Yeah.
Let's go and do it. So for me, as a highly driven person, I like having that, and I feel a great sense of achievement when I can go.
Absolutely,
I've
it's
done
fantastic.
this.
It's so important to have a solid framework, right? Because like you're saying, you've so many individuals in your business in different teams delivering different, bodies of work. It's so important to have a framework at times to actually make sure that you're working on the business and not 100% in the weeds and in the business. So probably what I'm keen to know from you, mate, is do you have any tips or any insights to share around as a team, the T4 team? How do you keep that team as a high performing team? Because EOS is very much around operating the business, but what about the I guess the dynamics of the team and interpersonal relationships and getting the best out of a team and getting it to be what you would describe as high performing?
So typically Mondays I call it meetings Mondays. So Mondays, as Ian would say, the scoreboard resets and we start again. So we get the numbers up. This is what we're going after. This is what we have to achieve. And then it's do the work, review the next week. How did we go? Are we up? Are we down? What can we do better? What do we need to drive? Our sales numbers. What conversations do we need to be having? And then it's just about trying to find the right people, because ultimately EOS is a fantastic tool to help not only grow your business, but it also helps you identify if someone's not the right fit for the business very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so critical to have the right people on the bus.
Correct.
And that's, we live and breathe it here as well. We're very much about having the right people on the bus first.
Yep. Then
work out where that bus is going.
Yep.
It's really interesting that you've got a weekly cadence to your review, right? So you guys as a team are literally chunking it down to quite a small component, right? Which is a weekly component to review how you've done and what you're setting out to achieve. So that what did we learn? What are we going to do? What are you committing to do?
Yep.
Reviewing what we did last week, and then so you've got that flywheel, that cycle at a weekly snapshot. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So sales meeting every Monday morning at 8:45. That's an hour and a half.
Starts the week off
Starts the week off, and then we actually have our leadership meeting midday, and then I have one-on-ones with key staff in the afternoon to go, okay, where are we at? What are we looking at this week? What do we need to get done? How are we going to get it done?
Yeah, what are the challenges?
Yep.
Yeah,
what are
fantastic.
the challenges? What are the issues, roadblocks? And so it's it's mentoring them, but at the same time, it's empowering them at the same time to go, I believe you can do this.
Right.
And
it's good at the team level to have that framework as well, right? So they know, well, if I've got a problem and it needed discussed, I better get it into Dan before.
Correct.
For Friday, because Monday morning there's an opportunity where they're reviewing this. So them understanding the process as well is probably pretty important.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool, mate. Thank you so much for today. I always enjoy our conversations. They always go off on a tangent. That's always inevitably really rewarding. So mate, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Love working with you, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.